And so this position of Prelude yoga I call the Raging Bull position because definitely raging because this is some bullshit. Welcome to Dirt, Sweat, and Gears and the Chateau of Shat on Cars. We're here with my 1989 Honda Prelude SI 4-wheel steering. And in this video, we are going to be talking about a very specific problem that a lot of people have or think they have. This problem came up while we were working on an upcoming video for my next installment of Try Hard, which is my car audio series. But while I was fixing it, I realized that it would serve to be a really good one-off because we are properly diagnosing a problem that is very commonly misdiagnosed. I am talking about code 14. This is a problem that leads people straight away to go replacing their electronic idle control valve without properly diagnosing it. And I say that because when people start loading up the parts cannon, they replace the idle control valve and throw a good one in the trash, and it doesn't solve their problem. Go figure. So in this video, we're going to properly diagnose a code 14, and we're going to walk through some of the other things that may come up along the way. So let's go back in time a little bit, get caught up, and when we get back here, we're going to take a look at some of the other problems you're going to face. So I'm going to tell you a little story. About 2 weeks ago, my electrician told me, "Oh, clear out the garage, get your car out of the garage, I'm going to start working." My contractor then told me, "Get your car out of the garage, clear out the garage. The electrician's going to start working on Monday." So I pulled my car out of the garage. And that's where it sat. Right there. And then we got 2 inches of rain within a half hour. So my car flooded. And you're probably thinking, well, it's worth it because now you're getting electricity in the garage. Did he show up that Monday? No. He did not show up until a week after it rained. So this was all for nothing. Can't even put a car cover on this because when I take it off, the car gets infested with earwigs. That's nice. And by nice, I mean horrifying. And to add to this tragedy, yesterday was my 20-ish high school reunion. It's actually been 22 years, but actual 20 landed kind of at the tail end of the pandemic, so we didn't do it at 20. So we did it at 22, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I took the car that I had in high school to my high school reunion? So I got in it, and I started it up. I figured, whatever, we'll just drive it with a gutted interior, you know, just like this. It's fine, no big deal. So I started up, and it's doing this. Now this is weird. I'm getting a check engine light. It's running terribly. But I'm getting, oh, here's our code. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Code 14. Really? Really? You're going to give me the idle air control valve code? Really? So instead of throwing parts and money at the problem, we're going to properly diagnose this. If I have to replace the idle control valve, we will. But I want to make sure that it does not work before I go throwing parts at it. Now I happen to have a spare EACV laying around. It's actually not idle air control valve, it's electronic air control valve technically. But we use the terms kind of interchangeably, or at least I do. But I digress. Instead of just throwing the part on there and seeing if it works, because there's a seal there, there's coolant, and it ends up being a whole lot of effort just guessing, we don't want to guess. We're going to follow the manual, which is available in just about every third generation Prelude discussion group. You can also contact me directly if you need a PDF copy of this. We're going to follow the manual, we're going to follow the diagnostic steps, and we're going to find our smoking gun. We're going to prove that this is bad before we go replacing it, because it could be several other things. So here's the diagnostic steps. First, turn the engine off. Well, we've already done that. Remove clock fuse in the underhood relay box for 10 seconds to reset the ECU, and then start the engine. Let's go do that. Clock fuse is a 10 amp next to the EFI, which is a 20 amp. So we want this one. Pull that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, we're just going to waste a little bit more time here just to make sure 10 seconds have passed, and I think it's been at least 10 seconds. Let's put this back in. Next up, start the engine. Is the check engine warning light on, and does LED indicate code 14? Let's find out. Sure runs like shit. Sure does. All right. Yes, stop the engine. So the next thing we want to do is measure the resistance in ohms on the EACV. We're looking for between 8 and 15 ohms. So we took the cap off here, the connector, and we're going to touch these guys together and see what happens. I'm getting nothing. I'm getting nothing. It says 1. So I'm getting basically an open circuit here. So there's no resistance to be had. Now let's test that on our spare EACV right here. This is going to be kind of tricky because hands. I need my hands. So when we do the same thing to this one, we get 13 ohms, 12 ohms, 13, 12. So that's a strong indicator that that one is no good, this one is good. We do have another Prelude that we know runs correctly because it passed smog, and we've proven that it runs correctly. So let's go test that just for shits and giggles, and if that tests out with a similar spec to this, we're going to go ahead and use this. We are here out in the wasteland with my Project Prelude, and we're going to test this car's EACV because we know this one runs correctly. 13 ohms. So it's actually the exact same spec as our spare. So if we do need to replace this, our spare is going to be our candidate for replacement. Okay, so now we know that the resistance is out of spec because there is an open circuit internally on this thing. So we do have to replace this EACV. This is the type of stuff that I'm looking for when I hear people say, oh, it's my EACV, I'm getting code 14. If you say that, I want you to go through these steps and show me what your resistance is. And in this case, the resistance is an open circuit entirely. So this does have to go. In my last video, I talked about taking off the entire plenum, and that really had the added benefit of having access to all of these hoses. We actually don't need to do that in this case, and I'm told that you actually can pull this out directly without having to pull anything else out. So we're going to give that a try. There are some things that we have to move here, like we have to be able to move the speedo cable, we have to unbolt the fuel rail, and we're going to unbolt the throttle cable, and we're going to remove the PCV. But we should be able to replace this without too much drama. The only problem is that there's an O-ring in there that I need to go buy. So since my electrician doesn't show up till the crack of noon, and today he's got to work overhead, which is, you know, funny because that was the first thing we asked him to do, but the last thing he chose to do. Still, we've got some time, I believe, to do this idle control valve. I already have the new valve. The gasket just came in yesterday, so let's get this thing banged out. So I took it on good authority that this could be removed without moving the fuel rail. However, yeah, that's not happening. That is not happening. This bolt will not come out any farther. because it is a flanged bolt. So that sucks. We have to lift the intake plenum. It's not the end of the world. I think all we have to do is lift this up high enough that this bolt will clear, and then we'll be fine. I can just reuse this gasket. You know, you can typically reuse intake gaskets, so I don't see a real problem here. I'm going to go ahead and unbolt the 4 bolts for the plenum and lift this whole stupid thing up. Finally, the old one's out. I don't think we did too much damage. I did lose a nut, which sucks, but I can just find a new one, or maybe I got lucky and it fell on the floor. And so the bad one, I'm not going to throw it out, but I am going to label it bad. So that wasn't too bad. We got it all done. The next thing is I need to bring this car out onto the driveway, and then we're going to bleed the coolant system. Because I would sure hate for a bouncing idle after this, especially considering my other experiences. Oh, I'll be here in the morning. Make sure your car's out of the way. Fuck. All right, now that we've got the thing replaced, we have to top off the coolant and let the car warm up while doing so. It's really the same exact process that I've shown in my other video. So I'm just going to put the tank on, put some coolant in it, let the car warm up until the thermostat opens up, and hopefully everything will be good from there. Wow. This is where my optimism went out the window. As I was making adjustments to the fast idle valve and to the base idle, the adjustment screw for the base idle broke. It broke. What a weird and stupid thing to happen. So obviously it had to happen to me. I then realized that there were 2 possible ways I could solve this, either by removing the screw and trying to replace it, or to replace the whole throttle body. And since the car currently technically runs, albeit very badly, I decided to leave the throttle body alone and to just go get another one. So I just got another throttle body thanks to Garrett from 3rd Generation Prelude Enthusiast. And thank you for watching my channel, and thank you for hooking me up with this part. It looks like the idle screw is not broken, although you can see there's a little bit of wear on it. So before I put this in, I want to take this screw out and see if it's something that I can match up at the hardware store just to be safe. Because I don't want to take the throttle body off of my car without knowing that I'm going to be able to put it back together today. I don't want more downtime with this car. It's been so long. All right, so I'm not going to take the idle screw out because it is not cooperating. I can get it up to a certain point, and then after that, it just says no more unless you want me to crumble into pieces. So we are going to swap this on. I have some WD-40 on both sides of this thing. It does run in and out pretty nicely. I think I can adjust this thing on the car. So that's the good news. Take a look at just how much carbon is inside my intake manifold here. Wow, that's interesting. I might want to throw on a pair of catch cans. Because, I mean, that's what happens when you have a really high mileage car. Also, interesting, right here is where the idle adjustment screw passes its air. And I just picked it off, but there is a big old booger there of sludge. So I picked that off, and I'm willing to bet that that was causing an obstruction. Taking a closer look at the throttle body, Yeah, there's quite a bit of goop in there. So that's not good. I mean, obviously, air filter. I did run a really lousy air filter for a long time. The one that I have on there now is much better. I mean, they were both K&N, but it's in a better location now. But this is what happens when you move away from your factory airbox. You're prone to this kind of stuff. So that very well may be the culprit, but considering I cannot adjust this idle screw at all, we're going to move ahead with installing our new throttle body from Garrett. I mean, not Garrett Turbos, Garrett the person. And so this position of Prelude Yoga I call the Raging Bull position, because definitely raging, because this is some bullshit. Because these coolant lines are bullshit. Oh, I finally got that back on. Wow, that was terrible. Oh, that was terrible. But it is nice having a strut bar there to kind of keep your weight off of other stuff that might break a little more easily. Hey, there's a benefit to modifying your car after all. One benefit out of the 97 drawbacks. I love my car. I love my car. I promise I love my car. All right, well, I don't need to put the intake tube on in order to start this thing up and run it. So we're gonna start it up, warm it up, and adjust the idle as we go. That sounds a little low to me. But let's wait for the car to warm up, because that could be the fast idle valve at play here. Just keeping it at, 1150 RPM. I might be able to bring down the fast idle valve just a touch. But I don't want to touch that just yet. I want to set the base idle first and then go from there. So after getting my car back together, I gave it a good clean. And just as I was finishing up, the sun came out. So we need to go for a drive. This is the first time in over a month I have driven this car on the road. That's a little bit annoying. That might be... What the fuck? Come on. That's probably fast idle, honestly. Probably need to tighten that up. But let's get this car warmed up and we'll see how it behaves once it's warm. That is annoying, but did it a third time. I'm not touching the throttle. Tighten the fast idle valve just a little bit. And now the car's up to operating temperature. Let's see how it behaves. Or if it behaves. It's not behaving. It's still all over the place. That's not good. Unfortunately, looking through the book, all signs in the manual point to the EACV being mechanically bad. Clearly, electrically, it's good. We tested it, and it tested electrically within spec. But we may still have a problem. So it could be as simple as a bad gasket or the gasket not seated correctly. But no matter what the problem is, we have to take this thing off, which means doing all of that work again. I love doing things twice, don't you? So on my workbench over here on the right, we have the IACV that we pulled off of my Prelude. After I pulled out the gasket, which is over here, a little O-ring here, double O-ring, this actually feels nice and soft. And then I was reminded that I actually replaced that not long ago. It's probably only has about 3,000 or 4,000 miles on it. So I actually can reuse that if I want to. On the left, we have a new EACV. And no, I'm not talking about another one that was pulled off of a junk parts car. No, I'm not even talking about a refurbish. This is brand new. This is brand new from the factory. It's like a factory overstock, I guess. And it even has the inspection stamp on it. So this is a brand new part. And I am very, very happy, very, very lucky to be able to get my hands on one. The price for this was ridiculous, as you might expect. I completely paid out the ass. But that said, it was still cheaper than all of the remanufactured ones that are on eBay right now. So I kind of got a good deal, but I also really bent over for this one. But like I said, it's very rare that these even show up on the market, and even more rare that I am in a position to even be able to afford it. So I bought it. And since I'm going to keep this car forever, I really don't mind putting brand new parts on this car. So we have our 3 idle air control valves here on the car. This is the one that was on the car with the failed electronics. This is the one that we just took off with suspected failed mechanicals. This is our brand new one. First, we're going to take a look inside the brand new one so that we know what we're expecting when we look at it. Okay, you can see inside of it, you see how there's that inside this hole here. There's that little accordion there. Yeah, just keep an eye on that as we look at the other 2 EACVs. So this is the one that came off of the car originally. This is the original EACV. It's a little bit hard to see because everything is black, but inside this one, you see that little accordion, and it is intact. This is the one that we just took off of the car, our replacement. You see the little accordion on the inside of it? It's all bent to shit. So I think that is our smoking gun. There's also a little bit of RTV, but I don't think the RTV around here would have affected the seal very much. I think the problem was caused by whatever bent up that little accordion diaphragm inside the EACV. I don't know what that part is or what it does or what its function is. I have no idea, but the fact that that's all bent up and on the other 2, it's not, leads me to believe that there is a problem, and that's the problem. So we're going to put our brand new one on with the gasket that was on our old one, because the one that was on the old one was still good. In fact, this one may still be good if I clean off the RTV. All right, well, you know what they say, 10th time's a charm, or something like that. Is that what they say? I don't know. But I'm hopeful this time because I made a sacrifice to the Prelude of 1 intake plenum nut. So it has accepted my sacrifice clearly because it is nowhere to be found. And hopefully that means that I have appeased the Prelude and it's going to start working. Let's give this a try. All right, so you know the drill. We're going to run this for the next 20 minutes, and if nothing exciting happens, I'll see you on the other side. All right. All feels pretty good so far. The base idle is probably a little low. But that shouldn't be a big, huge problem. It should still drive just fine. What the f***? Let's see how it drives. Even though the idle is bullshit. Even though the idle is just taking off for no f***ing reason. Let's see what happens. I'm not holding it at 3,000. I'm not holding it there. I'm not holding it there. Such bullshit. Such bullshit. So I did some searching on the PreludePower.com forum, and somebody at one point had a similar situation where when the car was moving, the idle would take off and stay at about 2,500 RPMs. It sounded very similar to my situation. His problem turned out to be throttle position sensor. Now I thought, well, you know, definitely we had problems with the idle control valve. And in fact, other people in that thread kept suggesting idle control valve. But this one's brand new. And we've confirmed that we have fixed all of the other symptoms that could have been controlled by idle control valve. His problem ended up being throttle position sensor. And I started to think, hey, wait a minute. Because I couldn't adjust my base idle because my screw broke, I got a throttle body from Garrett. And he sent me a picture where he cleaned this whole thing up in a tub. And that got me thinking, maybe some moisture got into that electronic piece on the side of the throttle body there. And maybe it got fried. So I am going to pull this off. I'm going to take that throttle position sensor off and compare it to the one that I pulled off of the car originally. All right, we've got this thing. I have cut slots into the little rivets that were holding this down. And now we're ready to take it off. And ladies and gentlemen, we have corrosion. So water definitely got in here. And I believe that this throttle position sensor is fried. I'm sure there's some diagnostics, and we're going to run through that. But in the meantime, let's just swap out the one that we know worked. We're going to put it on this throttle body and put this back together and see if it all worked. If it worked, we're going to figure out how to diagnose this thing correctly. So the right way of testing this thing is actually to put a test harness between the ECU and the actual wiring harness. We don't have one of those, so we're going to do it the wrong way. We've already swapped the part, and we're going to take it out for a drive. I have already bled the cooling system, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. And the fortunate thing with throttle position sensors is that it's a pretty generic part, so it's not going to cost you a fortune. Signs are good so far. I think I remember it taking off when I was backing up last time. So far, so good. Oh yeah, I think this is gonna work. I think we're in the clear. Yeah! Yeah! Oh my God, finally! Yes! Oh, after all this time and all this trouble, we fixed it. Let's get it out to a faster road so that we can give it some beans and see if it drives the way it's supposed to. Because if you remember my last test drive, it was cutting out at around 4,000 RPM when we were goosing it, but I can't do that in a residential area. So we want to get this out on a road where we can go a little bit faster, and we'll give this a try. Yeah, that feels really good. The focus of this project was to get the car running right, and we did. Mission accomplished. I am so happy for this. This is, so glad to have my car back on the road after months and months of working on it. I mean, it wasn't just this project. This project came up because we were doing other work with TryHard and because the car got left sitting out in the rain. So a lot happened with this car in a lot of time. Not a little time, a lot of time. And it's been a while, and I'm really excited to be driving this thing again. So thrilled. And that means I could finally record the outro to my other videos, so you're going to see more stuff for this Prelude coming very soon. Oh, that's so good. As always, If you like what you see, like, share, subscribe, comment. And if you don't like what you see, leave a comment anyway. Maybe you're Garrett and you sent me a part and it turned out to have a bad throttle position sensor. Not your fault. I'm not blaming you. I'm not calling anybody out on this one. This is just part of the process. And I'm just glad we figured it out. I'm really glad we figured it out. I mean, we tried to do everything right. We try to do things right around here whenever we can. And this is just one of those times where you make a change and it turns out you caused a problem while you're fixing another problem. It happens. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video.